So, welcome everyone to our podcast, Slay Your Dragons with Compassion. And this is a series we've been running for a while now in conjunction with online events. And we're looking at Slay Your Dragons with Compassion. We're looking at what have you had to overcome to become who you are? And what does your life look like? And what have been the turning points in your life? And how have you had to grow in that? Just a small bit to stick into the podcast, but we'll find out whatever comes out of the dialogue. So I'm really happy to welcome a good friend of mine again today, Chris Waters, and she specializes in shamanism, and she is what I would call a wise elder. Not too old, Chris, but anyway, a sort of a wise elder, but a woman who is actually sort of like who's walking a very sort of solid and powerful path. So, Chris, can you tell us first of all how you got into the work that you're doing?
How I got into healing, first of all, is because I had a crisis. I have got this incredible ability, I think, along the way. When I get off track, somebody or something puts me back on track. And in a way, it happened to me when I was 18, and along came a person who, out of the blue, who suddenly started to tell me about theology and spirituality, and he had this ability to connect things that at 18 years old I had no idea, but I'd been afraid of myself. I'd been afraid of the abilities that I had, the voices in my head, and the things that I saw and the things that I felt. And I shut everything down. And I found myself at this time, so I was 18, 19 years old, and I was in Spain because I was studying for a degree in languages at that time. And I met this person just by accident, happened to be staying in somebody's apartment who was also on the same course. And he just guided me back to my spiritual self, because it would have been so easy for me to shut everything down and live what I would call TikTok life, just doing what everybody else is doing and fitting in and doing whatever I saw everyone else doing. And that had been and still has been, to an extent, part of my journey. So along he comes, he starts to show me things about spirituality, religion, and the connection between the two. He was from Argentina, and I think at that time he'd escaped Argentina because people were being disappeared at that time. There was a government there that was just taking people and putting them in prison, and they were never seen again. So I think that's why he ended up in Madrid. Anyway, he taught me loads of things, and then he disappeared. It was almost like he was there specifically to pull me back onto a spiritual path and a healing path. And I've had people like that in my life over and over again. Every time I get off track, there's somebody who shows up, and it's like, this is the next piece of your journey. So I'm really grateful to those, what I call earth angels. They show up, they're there for me, they teach me things, and then they move on. They somehow disappear. I don't know where they go, but they're there for that reason. It feels to me they're there for that reason. My healing path began because of that, I think. I had a crisis in my 30s, and it was another situation where I was doing like lots of different jobs. I was married to somebody who had a lot of depression. So he got a job, and then he was made redundant, and then he got another job and he was made redundant. And it was like this kind of thing. And I was saying yes to every job that I could find that was offered to me, because I wanted to kind of keep the boat afloat, keep the wolf from the door. And that was my fear. My biggest fear was I would not be able to do that. And anyhow, the burden of all that literally landed on my back, and I found myself flat on my back for 16 days. I couldn't move. I was in absolute agony. And along came somebody who was a healer, and he started to do reflexology and taught me a lot about why it wasn't just a physical thing, it was an emotional, mental, and spiritual thing. And he showed me, again, there's another path I could take instead of this being the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect daughter, the perfect everything. It's like, you know, you're being shown something here, and you are a healer, and you need to be doing this. So he put me back on track, and I started to really then focus on my healing path. And yeah, I came out of most of the part-time jobs that I was doing and decided to focus on reflexology, which was what I learned. And then I realized some people could heal and some people couldn't. So then I understood that the mind affects the body. So I went looking for psychotherapeutic modalities to help people. And all the time, Malcolm, I was helping myself, you know. And then I realized that it wasn't just the mind that's affecting the body and people's well-being. It was also something about the soul's journey. And so I began, and this was the scary thing, because I began to think what I needed to do was to find people who were on a different journey, a soul's journey, and open up that envelope, if you like, that I wasn't aware of consciously. And so that was when I created an organization called Lifetimes. And from nothing, I started to bring workshop leaders to Reading, where I live. And in the process of offering that to others, I also benefited hugely from the experiences, from the things that they offered, the opening up of live voice work and psychodrama, and also the things that you taught, Malcolm, and dance. And you came to Reading, I remember.
Yes.
And what I was doing was literally putting out a magazine every month saying, this is what we're doing, and then also inviting other therapists and other people in the healing profession to advertise in this little magazine that ended up something like 8,000 copies every month, which was a huge task. But it's like I did it from nothing, because there was a calling in my soul to grow and to evolve. And this was the way it was offered to me, I guess. And then eventually I thought, oh, I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to be doing. This is my destiny. And then it all tumbled in. My relationship was in a terrible state and everything was falling apart. So then somebody offered me a book that Alberto Villoldo had written, Shaman, Healer, Sage. And then I went and explored what it meant to be a shaman. What actually was this? And when I went to America to train, and it was, oh, this is home, because for me, this was the last piece in the puzzle. So it was about energy work, how we can affect the energy body of a person, and it ripples down through all the other bodies. And yeah, but I had to overcome so many obstacles, Malcolm, in the process of doing that. I didn't have any money. I didn't have what I needed. It was, it was a difficult time. But again, people showed up to kind of point the way, in a way. So that's how I came to be doing what I'm doing now. But it's been a 72 now. So I started all this in my 20s, late 20s. So that's a lot of years of, on track, off track, on track, off track.
So, but there was a calling, and I think that's something that I've seen pretty much through a lot of these podcasts, is that a lot of us get awakened through some sort of calling. It's like we're trotting along in our normal everyday way, and then something happens. Often adversity, often ill health or loss.
Yeah.
The time when things really take off and have a shift. Also, I think one of the things that I picked up in what you were just saying is that we often think, I've got it now, I've cracked it.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
all we're doing is seeing the next mountain peak that we've got to climb. And as far as I can understand, it goes on forever.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, because you get to a place and you think, yeah, this is it. And then something else comes along to help you to, I call them another, pardon my language, but it's another fucking growth opportunity. I'm going through one now as well. My partner is very ill, has been diagnosed with myeloma, which is, not an easy thing to recover from. And so you're thrown these opportunities to grow rather than to let them destroy you, which they could, easily.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? That either, and I think for some people, these opportunities or these situations come along, these sufferings come along, and they destroy us. But it's almost like there's an invitation to find more resources inside ourselves to deal with this. And I wasn't going to raise your partner unless you did, and you have. So, but right now you're in that. You're in a place, and often when you're with someone who's really sick, they're going to get a lot of the attention both from you and others. And then you at the side is sort of like, is having to dig really deep inside yourself. Can I ask how you're dealing with your partner? What's your partner's name again?
Peter.
Peter. Can I ask how you're dealing with Peter's sickness? What
Very badly.
Yes.
If I'm honest, yeah, it's very up and down in a way, but I'm so grateful to all the things I've learned along the way. The shamanic practices, the way that what I teach now is what I'm having to go through. So I can't teach something I haven't experienced. And it was when he was diagnosed, it was in January, and I had to teach an Easter class, which is all about death and dying and letting go and surrendering. And my class they were brilliant, because I'd be standing there teaching and then I'd start to cry because I'm in that, I'm not detached from that, let's say. So it is about digging deep and also honoring what you're feeling, not putting away what you're feeling. And this is one of the things that I'm so grateful for, is the ability to not say to myself, I'm going to push this away because I don't like what I'm feeling. And Peter, he's got an incredible mindset and also an integrity around authenticity. So we can't hide things, we can't pretend. And I think that's so important. And I really admire him for that, because that's a big lesson for all of us, really.
So what we're looking at is two fairly conscious beings going through a profound experience, not knowing where the experience is going to take you, and not knowing whether. I guess if we look at this macrocosmically, we can look at the state of the world and go, we don't know what's going to happen to our planet and our species. But if we bring it back to the microcosm of your relationship, the long-term relationship with your partner,
exactly.
You don't know where it's going, and you don't know how you're going to wind up, but you're getting resourced, and you're also using the resources you've already developed, which is very much what my book was about. How do we thrive in times of... So what do you see that if you were to name the things that you've actually been able to access that are helping you through this, what would they be?
What resources I've been...
What resources? Because it's like we don't know we've got the resources until we have to use them, and then we go,
I think an incredible resilience, and I also think that it's for me it's about the reliance I have on the medicine path that I've walked. I would say faith and trust. But having said that, this has really wobbled my faith, and also wobbled my faith in my own abilities to heal. And and also the trusting the unknown, and that's tough, but you're right, that's where we are in the world. It's a global thing. We don't know, things are changing and things are crumbling around us. We don't know where we're going, and in order to manage all of that or navigate all of that, I think for me it's been about keeping my focus on not the past, but who are we becoming? Who do we really want to be? And every now and then that falls away and I go into panic, and then I bring myself back into my breath, into my body, into this moment, because that's all there is, And it's practice, it's discipline. It is a discipline.
And
Really.
that's the thing, it is, it's a practice. And that's what I'm seeing more and more in the groups that I'm running now, is that we're not looking at the sort of like the moment of great catharsis where you sort of like you jettison something out of your body. You're arriving at a place where you see what the practice is, and then you're getting conscious about what happens next. And it seems to me like, and I've known you a long time because we were both trustees of alternatives for a long time. And I've watched your practices as you've gone along the way. And one of the things I've noticed about you is that you have a kindness and an openness, and I think that they are underrated parts of ourselves, because we can look at healing as will Pete die? I don't want to be quite as
Yeah.
full on
Yeah.
as that, but that may not be what the healing actually means. And I think you'll be using your healing gifts regardless in this scenario.
Yeah. I think, and kindness and care, I think it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
And I think in my growing up, I grew up in a family that didn't do emotions, they weren't on the table. Nothing was on the table. So the gift in that for me was what I had to do. I was almost the conduit for everybody's emotions. So people would say to me, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's like being the conduit for that which was not spoken, and then having to regulate that and work with that, and understand that, it's all in the heart. It's not a mind thing. It's here in the heart where the mind can't actually feel. The heart feels. And if you bring whatever's going on into your heart, that's where kindness lives, isn't it? And care. And it starts for yourself, of course, and then ripples out to other people. But if we're not kind to ourselves, then that's a difficult place to be.
And of course, that's where healing comes from as well. But it will come from the kindness that we employ in how we operate, rather than the brilliance we might think that we have.
Yeah.
I know you've done a lot of work in, because I went with you to Peru for one of the trips you took there. I know you go regularly to Peru and work with shamans. And I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that aspect of your path.
Well, yes, the shamans that I love to work with are the Kero. So they're from the high Andes, and they don't teach anything. That's what I love about them. They model care and kindness and connection to Mother Earth and presence. And they modeled that for me. And I saw it I suddenly felt, as I worked with them, I suddenly felt a great deal of belonging to a tribe of people who really touched my heart. So yeah, that's what they've done for me. Of course, I don't want to go on about ayahuasca, but I've done ayahuasca and I've stopped taking people there now because it's become a thing. It's a badge you can wear. And actually, all the ayahuasqueros that we used to work with are now dead. And the reason, I believe, is because they were tempted to come to Europe and they were taken by people around, to do ayahuasca ceremonies, and they took the plant out of the jungle and sold it. And for me, that was totally out of integrity. So I don't do it anymore. I just think consciousness has expanded to such an extent. We don't need things like that to open ourselves. We just need the practices. and somebody who can guide you.
We need guidance as well. And you've talked
Well, yeah,
before about that all the way along the way that people have come into your life. And it's also true for me that people have come into my life at the right moment
yeah,
and have brought guidance. And
yeah,
who knows where, from left field in many ways.
yeah, exactly.
Somehow they do show up. We are not abandoned and alone as human beings on planet Earth.
No. We're really not. No, we're really not. And I think that's a really big lesson for everyone to know, because there are times when it feels like even the angels have turned their back on us and we're left. And this has happened to me, when I left my relationship and my children, it was so painful. It felt like everything had turned its back on me. My guidance, my angels, my, whatever I could lean back on had gone. And it threw me onto myself. It threw me into my own heart. But for a while, it was so painful, Malcolm, because it's the loss of everything that you know. And of course, it's a mini death, if you like. It's a death of the old you or the old me. And something new had to grow from that. But first of all, I had to grieve. Yeah. A friend of mine said she'd never seen somebody cry so much in all her life. But that's the grief and the pain and the sorrow of having a relationship I couldn't make work, and having to step away was the most painful thing I ever did, and it helped me to grow.
I think one of the practices we have to embrace is the willingness to grieve.
Yes.
We sort of see this strong stoic sort of sense of being in the face of adversity as a plus. But what I see is that the capacity to let it break our hearts open is where a lot of the healing comes as well.
Oh, totally get that. And I see that in my trainings as well. The vulnerability that comes from that is beautiful. And the thing that if you don't do it, you get like brittle and harsh and critical of self and others, and that's a terrible place to be, that because it makes you judgmental as well of self and others, when you're not willing to open your heart and let what's there be seen, and there's a humility in that, I think.
It's interesting because I was looking at the other day at alternatives and what I would say about the quality of the speakers we had there. This is the series that we ran at St James's Piccadilly. And what I saw is that the teachers who really touched my heart were the ones who showed humility. It's quite easy to storm into a room and sort of do a big I am act, but it'll get you to sort of like the level where you can get uplifted, pepped up. It's not the level where people get really transformed.
No, I totally get that. And I think that's one of the blessings of my life, really, that I'm willing to go there because I've had to. And I think it's really important that people who I train see that in me, that I'm not perfect. And I can cry with joy as much as with sorrow. And when I see people in my training recently, there's a guy who, he was in a terrible state when he came. He's been around the wheel. He's on his second turn around the wheel, and he's writing songs and singing his heart. He's singing his heart. And I sit there and I invite him to play, in the mornings when we sit together. And it makes me cry because that's so beautiful. And from a guy, a young man, to be able to do that, I think is extraordinary. And I would love to see more people come to that place instead of I've got to be strong and I've got to, tune up, carry on, which is very English, isn't it?
It is. And it doesn't really serve us that well. It's like we put on a pretense that everything's fine. So every photograph you see, people are smiling.
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like it denies the need we have to let our struggles be also part of who we are.
Yeah.
I don't really trust friendships until we've grappled a bit and that actually sort of that strengthens it rather than
Yeah,
when things are all happy and lovely and clappy, blah
yeah,
blah blah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, and it makes any relationship robust, you
Yeah,
know. And I think that's true with, if I go back to Peter and I, we've fought, in the beginning we fought like cat and dog. It was quite, people used to say, we're going to pay to watch you, So we want tickets for this because this is awesome, because we would explode, and it wasn't very nice, but it created a robust kind of vessel for this relationship. That means that whatever we go through, we go through it together.
yes. And that's a real blessing, even in the midst of the suffering that's obviously going on for both of you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dragons, my dragons have been around fear of being seen. That's another one that I think a lot of us in this field, if you like, have had, like fear of showing up, being seen, being vulnerable, all of those things. And I
Yeah.
think I've had to work all of those in my life, and that's where I am now. And it, like you said, it's going to continue. It's not
Yes.
finished.
And it gives life meaning to have
Mm.
those things happen for us as well, to be able to encounter those difficulties and learn and make the practices we need to come
Yes.
through them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the key to me, because if we don't have a practice, if we don't have something that we can lean back into, then we do feel we're on our own and we are alone. And that's a difficult place to be. So I would encourage anybody who's going through stuff to find somebody that they can walk hand in hand with for a while.
Mm.
Just somebody that walks that path with you, not to fix you, not to make you better, but to just be there.
One of the things I realized when I lost my daughter is how blessed I was to have people around me who I could reach out to and
Mm,
not have to try and brazen my way through it on my own. And I think we
mm,
underestimate the need for what I've called in my book Sangha, the
yeah,
company of what the Buddhists call Sangha, which is the company of others of like mind.
yeah.
And I think that you are blessed with that as well. I've met quite a few of your friends and see that
Mm.
there's a solidity there that's around.
Yes, exactly that. I think it's oh, have I lost you? Oh
No, no,
no.
no, you're
Yeah.
there.
I think it's so important. And Malcolm, in a way, I think that's why I create what I call villages, of people who support each other through whatever it is they're going through. And we've all been wounded. We've all had stuff that's happened to us. Um, and these tribes or villages support each other as they go around the medicine wheel, so that they know there's always somebody there, not to fix, but to
Yeah,
just be there. And yeah, just understand that we're all in this together, literally.
we are, and also this is not. I don't think this is an easy planet to be to be.
Oh,
It's
tell me.
beautiful, and it's like that we have amazing experiences.
Mm.
But I think it's a very tough thing to live a life as a human being and to deal with what comes at us. But can I
Yeah.
just ask you a little bit about just for those who don't understand it, a little bit about the medicine wheel. What do you mean by that?
Well, the medicine wheel is a map, if you like, of human consciousness, of the growth that we have, from childhood through life, all the way to death. So the medicine wheel itself allows us to deal with certain things along the way. So we have 4 directions. We go from the south to the west, to the north, to the east, and then through the center of the wheel. So the south direction is all about dealing with our own personal wounds and transforming them, not wallowing in them, but saying, okay, yes, this did happen to me. I did go through this, but here's the gift that brings. And I think we've all got a sacred wound. That is the gift that we eventually will bring to the world once we've transformed it from suffering into personal power, really. And when we get to the west, then we're dealing with our ancestral stuff. So the hand-me-downs that come from our ancestors, our parents, all the belief systems that we take on that may not be ours. We unpeel all of that. Also the karmic stories, what does it mean to be a man or a woman today? That's a karmic story. What does it mean to be a healer? What does it mean to be a person who helps others? There's a lot of backstory to that. So we want to unravel that. And then we get to the north, having stripped away everything that doesn't serve us. Then we can reclaim those parts of us that are our gift. Often by the north, people start to write poetry. I've had loads of students who've written books, who are artists, who have got art exhibitions all over the world. It's extraordinary what transpires from letting go of what no longer serves in a visceral way, not in a mental conceptual way, but actually doing it. And so then we reclaim, and then when we get to the east, we let it all go, because that's about surrendering not less than everything.
Yes, yes.
And so that really is a potted kind of thing around the wheel, and it is exactly the path that we take through life. As a child, we're connected to our family or carers. Then we go out into the world and we start to be teenagers and we rebel against everything. Then we start to integrate the things that we've rebelled against, and eventually we let go.
So I'm thinking, as you're talking about the medicine wheel and being a map of actually, it's a bit like we're on a treasure hunt as human beings. There are different maps that can guide us towards whatever it is we're looking for.
Absolutely.
I know Bala was really valuable to help me understand the nature of the duality of life. And the medicine wheel, I know that you've been involved with for decades.
Yeah.
And it's very much a part of your life, and it will help you in your journey, but it will also help others who you as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Coming near the end of our podcast together today, and it's been really lovely sort of dialoguing with you. If you were to say, what's the main dragon that you've had to slay in your life? I know you talked about fear before, but
Yeah,
sort of like to see what sits there as the big thing that you've had to deal with and find your way past.
I think, I think probably the thing that most changed my life, and I think that's probably the essence of what we're saying here, was the day that I understood that, because I'm an empath as well, so I feel everything. And the day I understood that I don't have to feel it all, that I could connect myself to Mother Earth and Father Sun and be held by these incredible forces of nature that have held me and still hold me. And I think as an empath, it was very painful to feel everything that's going on. And then for me, that was the hurdle I had to climb over to decide that it's not all mine. It's not all, it's, yeah.
I don't know that some people, they want to get rid of their empathic gifts because it's so painful.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a blessing.
Yes, yes.
And a curse.
A curse, exactly. But it also is, we wouldn't want to do without it, would we really?
No, because I couldn't do what I do if I didn't feel everything. But the difference is I can have, I'm held by the forces of nature. So I'm inside that, and nothing, I can feel it, I can experience it, but I don't have to have it as my own.
Lovely.
And of course, if as long as I've done my own work, then I know what's mine and what isn't.
And that's the key, isn't it? We can't just sort of like, let's go, oh, well, there's grace is shining on me and I can find my way through. We have to keep doing the work. And I know that you do the work.
Yeah.
And I wish you and Pete really well in this
Thank you.
this part of your journey. It's not easy to be around deep illness and suffering and fear of death and all that goes with that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Malcolm. I really appreciate that.
And I'm really grateful that you've come on and you've shared with us so openly today. And that's lovely, Chris.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me. And
Thank you very much indeed.
All right. Thanks then. Bye.
Bye.